This is an after-school program podcast.
Welcome to the Home Studio Hangout podcast, where we explore what it's like building, running, and working out of a home studio with your hosts, Joshua Matotek, Andrew Simmons, and many guests in different areas of the music industry.
Welcome back to this episode of the Home Studio Hangout podcast. Today, me and Josh are here with our good friend, your good friend, my favorite TikTok meme consultant, Mr. Nick Dewar.
What's up? How's it going?
Good, man. I wake up every day hoping to get a message from you sharing some new dumb TikTok.
Oh, no.
I wake up every day.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could be helpful in that way.
Yeah. Josh wanted me to start this episode out by talking about your mad caffeine addiction.
It's bad. It's gotten better, but it's bad. Here, look how close this is. I got a whole case of yerba that close to me.
Holy crap, bro.
It's my second cup of coffee for the day. I'll probably get another one on my way to my next meeting. So
we were talking about caffeine stuff and how we're like trying to cut back. Josh is like, you need to ask Nick about his caffeine addiction because it's crazy.
Bro, I remember whenever you were telling me about how you were so desperate you were reusing espresso grounds. Like you just like wouldn't empty it out. You're like, no, I could get another shot out of that.
I mean, I do that sometimes. Yeah. Like when I make coffee now, my coffee pot broke. So I'll make a cup of just espresso, like 4.5 shots of espresso, and just drink it like coffee. And then for my second cup, I'll just reuse those same grounds and make the same thing. It doesn't taste as good and it's definitely not as strong, but whatever. It's not a real cup of coffee, but
balling on a budget.
I can trick my body into thinking that it is. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, have you ever seen that? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say what's crazy is I still have cut back on caffeine. I don't have as much as I used to, but it's still a problem. I need to cut back even more. I was gonna, this time between the end of the last tour and this, like the beginning of the next one, I was gonna cut all caffeine out and just completely like purge my whole system of it, but that didn't happen because I have too much other stuff I want to do. And yeah caffeine withdrawal is hard.
Oh dude, yeah, it hurts like physically. I was gonna say, have you seen that episode of The Cave with Kenny Beats with Thundercat? Homie drinks, so they're probably there for maybe like an hour. Homie drinks like 7 yerbas. Nice. And he's literally like freaking out on his bass, like, and just like going ham. Like, I can't even imagine. I would actually pass out from a heart attack.
Oh, dude, it was bad. So when I was on the Rooney tour, like 5 years ago or whenever that was, we got an endorsement from yerba, and I had never had it before that. And I was like, whatever, it's free, it's here. We literally they drop off half a pallet for us, like halfway through at the beginning of the tour, and then refilled us again about halfway through. But yeah, I drank one of them and I was like, this is nice. I'm just going to keep going. And I started drinking them like water, and it got really bad. And that's where my addiction started, was because it was free and it was just there.
Tour yerbs.
Yeah. Oh, dude. It was great and terrible at the same time.
Jeez.
But what was good about it is it got me off of Red Bull, because I was really bad with Red Bull at the time. It's at least a little bit better than that.
I was about to say, I feel like it's a little bit better just because it's more natural, maybe. But I don't know if it's really that much better. But
so what?
150 grams or milligrams or whatever of caffeine. So it's not like it's.
What I did with Red Bull is, so the bigger cans have a less concentrated amount of caffeine in them. So before, I would do 2 12 ounces, like just in the morning. And like, then I switched to just like 1 16 ounce. And now to the point where like, I could just have like a 12 ounce Red Bull and I'm fine. But like, dude, I'm at the point now where like, I used to like chug like a large, yeah, right. I used to chug like a large cold brew every morning, and now I'm to the point where like if I drink a large cold brew, I'm like freaking out. Like my heart's pounding. I'm all jittery. I'm all anxious.
Yeah.
And so like that's been pretty cool. Like I don't even need
I
that
can
much
I can
caffeine
literally
anymore.
I can drink like a whole cold brew on an empty stomach when I first wake up, and I'm like, all right, here we go.
Give me that.
But other than that, I don't get yeah. Anybody got any more of that
that
cold brew?
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't like caffeine doesn't have that effect on me anymore. Unless it's like completely empty stomach after 12 hours or whatever.
Well, Nick, you had a busy 2021, my man. I
sure did.
I hope people that listen to the podcast followed you and noticed how absolutely wild your 2021 was. You went from nothing to literally everything in a matter of like a week.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, I about halfway through last year, halfway through 2021, which is last year, whatever.
Yeah.
I literally went from no work to about 125% of what I was doing the year before, or to like
years,
2019.
Yeah, the year before.
Yeah, like it was seriously wild, and like there was no ramp up. There was no like, let's get ready for this. There was no like small show into the big show. It was 0 to, hey, by the way, here's a show for 18,000 people. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And then it didn't slow down until I flew home for Christmas.
That's crazy.
It was a little wild for sure.
So let's start with like the beginning of the middle of the year. So you were like, I remember because we talked a little bit like at the beginning of last year, and you were kind of in that like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I don't know what work's going to look like. Like I'm getting a couple things here. I think you had done a couple corporate gigs and you were like, like not sure still what it was going to look like. Like, how did you go from that to girlfriends?
It's actually kind of the whole girlfriend story is actually kind of a crazy story. But we'll get there. So the beginning of 2021, everything was still really up in the air. And the company that I did most of my work with previously, or like pre-pandemic, he decided to close his doors, mostly because he was like, I think he turned 67 or something at the end, like in 2020. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in 2020. And he was like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, he'd been talking about retiring for a minute, and he was trying to fight really hard to get through the pandemic. And he was just like, you know what? I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. And as much as it sucked because he had great gear and we had great shows and like a great group of people and all that kind of stuff, it was just like, I get it. Like, I understand that you're tired and you're ready to go. And like, this is just, you don't want to deal with any of this anymore. And so he sold the company and cashed out, and I do not blame him whatsoever.
For sure.
But he got a couple, he took all of his so he sold all his gear, but kept his client list, and took all of the big shows that we used to do. And he's still organizing them. We're just sub-renting the gear from other companies. And so one of the other companies that we sub-rented gear from, I did a show for him in 2021, and the company that we got the gear from was like, oh, you actually know what you're doing. You actually are a cool person. And so they started bringing me on for more shows, and just doing all kinds of extra stuff, and giving me shop work and rebuilding all their speakers and consoles and stuff like that. And then
that's kind of crazy because like that's a huge blessing. That's more than a lot of people got coming out of 2020.
Yeah.
A lot of people were just like,
sure.
People had companies shut doors and they were like, guess I'm SOL.
Yeah.
Well,
that was something that was always surprising for me, just like from an outsider perspective. Like, the pandemic is kind of whenever we started just like FaceTiming, like, a few times a week, and we would just like sit there and talk and do whatever for like hours, And so like every time I called you, like it felt like 90% of the time you were like, oh, hey, I'm at the shop working. And I was like, what? I thought that was impossible right now,
Yeah. Well, Yeah, well, basically, because for that company, basically what happened was at the end of the year, like the end of every year, they take like the last month or so and they fix all the broken gear, they fix all the broken cables, like they go through and they inventory everything and all of that. And when 2020 happened, they basically shut their doors and nobody came in or out except the CEO of the company. And so when everything started ramping back up, they were like, oh, we didn't do that because everything was shut down. So now we have all of this backlog of stuff that we have to take care of. Mm-hmm. And so they brought a couple of us in to like try to catch up on that and whatever. And then, we just ran straight into shows. And because so many other companies closed their doors and stuff during 2020, we just had more shows. And because all of these bands and artists and companies had taken so much time off, they were like, well, we have to come back. We have to do something. We need to do it. And so not only were there less companies, but there were more shows and in a smaller amount of time.
Bro, there were like triple the amount of shows that would have normally happened in the first half of a year.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, literally there were days, and like, this isn't even exaggeration. There were literally days where I had 4 show offers per day. And I like, clearly I can't take them all, but 4 show offers per day. And that happened all the time. There just were so many shows and there were so few people. So many people in LA that work in the music industry were like, yeah, I'm done. And they left LA or they got other jobs that paid better or, whatever. And so there was, it was a perfect storm of cool and garbage all at the same time.
Yeah, that's wild. Okay.
So anyway.
Yeah, back to the story.
Yeah, so here's the back. Yeah, so in about September or something, I got a call from a company that was like, "Hey, we're doing this country festival in Palm Springs, and we need somebody to do front of house for one of the stages. Can you come down?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I drove down to Palm Springs, did this country festival, so it was like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that. And then it was done Sunday night at like 3 a.m. So in between sets on Sunday night at about 9:30 at night, I got a call from my friend who at the time was doing front of house for Paris. And he's like, "Hey man, what's the rest of your year look like?" And I was like, "Well, it's a little bit booked, but for the right thing, it could be completely open. What do you got?" So he's like, "Hey, so my friend is looking for a front of house guy for this tour. It starts pretty soon. And here's the dates, like, here's the band, check it out." And I was like, "Okay, sure, whatever." So I pulled him up and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of fun. The music's cool. They're a real, they're real artists, like they're real band, whatever." And so he gave me Mike, the guitar player for the band's number, to talk with him through some stuff. And I was like, okay. So talked with him. Mike was like, "Cool, you sound like a dope dude. Like, you know what you're doing. And like, you're a cool hang. I'm going to pass you to the management for the band." And I was like, okay. So then I called Brad, who's the manager, and we talked for like 30 minutes. And he's like, "Hey, so we're actually rehearsing tomorrow in North Hollywood. Do you think you could show up?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." So
with a 3 a.m. call time, like in time for your previous thing. Yeah.
Right. So basically so that all happened between 9:30 and like 10 o'clock, 10:15 Sunday night. So then I went back, did the other show. We got done loading out at about 3. I went to sleep until like 5 or 6 that morning, woke up, drove back to LA, dropped my stuff off at my house, took a shower, drove to the rehearsal studio, pulled up there. And so this was the other thing. He was like, "Yeah, just come in and like hang out, introduce yourselves, just stop by for like 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, I know how this goes.
Yeah.
So I pulled up and luckily I brought my computer and like all my stuff to look professional or whatever, because I had a feeling it would turn into more than just like introduce yourself to the guys. Mm-hmm. So I walked in and he's like, "Yeah, so this is our whole setup and stuff. Like, why don't you sit down at the console and see how you feel?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And then he's like, "Yeah, you want to stay and like mix a song or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Which is exactly, all of this is how I expected all this to go. So
that's how it always goes.
We got like, right. So about 45 minutes into me, from the time I showed up to about 45 minutes later, he's like, "So welcome to the team." "Well, of course, if you want it, I guess." And I was like, sure. And so that was Monday. We rehearsed Monday, Tuesday, had a day off Wednesday to get our affairs in order. And our first day of tour was Thursday.
Good Lord.
And,
for that Downfall tour?
It was that we weren't on that whole tour, but okay. For the beginning of the Mod Sun tour.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. The Mod Sun tour. Got it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it was literally just like Sunday afternoon. I had no plans for the rest of the year. And then Sunday night or Monday morning, I had the rest of my year covered. And then potentially the rest of my, audio career for as long as I wanted covered,
Jeez.
And so it was super crazy because like I didn't know, like I knew who the guys were like on paper. I knew Travis from like his Warped Tour days and stuff like that, but I had never listened to his music. I didn't know what any of it sounded like. I didn't really know any of them. And it's always so hit or miss whenever you get into a situation like that. Cause you're like, well, I don't know these dudes. They could be the greatest people on the planet, or they could be the biggest douchebags I've ever met. And I'm just going to go lock myself in a vehicle with them for the next month and find out.
For sure.
But,
what was his Warped Tour band?
But yeah, T Mills.
Oh, really? Yeah. What was he? I didn't know he did Warped Tour stuff.
Yeah. He's T Mills.
Oh,
like, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. I didn't connect those dots at all. That's cool.
Yeah. So he did all that stuff. And then Nick's played in a bunch of bands too. I don't even know all of them, but he played for Goldfinger and he played for Half the Animal and he played for a bunch of people. And then Mike plays guitar and he's played for a ton of people too. But most recently, his big claim to fame is he plays for Panic at the Disco. And
really, that's super sick.
Yeah. And it was a crazy whirlwind of a few days, that's for sure. I definitely did not sleep very much that first week because our first show on Thursday was in LA, and then I went home with all the gear that we were taking and my own personal stuff, took a shower, drove straight to the airport and flew to our first show after that, which is where we picked up the bus and then continued the rest of the tour too.
So yeah, I wanted to talk to you about what tour prep looked like for this. And that's even more of a relevant thing because this is a very specific case. And honestly, this is probably more regular than you think it is. Getting picked up last minute like this, especially for I would call them like a upper mid-sized band, right? But they're not a staple band yet that has a guy. They're, just kind of getting started and they're on their upward trajectory. So they're building their team still. What did it look like?
Well, so they actually did have a guy that Travis had worked with for years, and then first day of rehearsals he just didn't show up at all. No call, no show, nothing.
That's not cool.
And then they did they had a friend come in and help them get set up for the first day of rehearsals, but the first 2 days of rehearsals they struggled because they didn't have a person, and they were all freaked out because they had 4 days of rehearsals I think, and then left the tour and they didn't have somebody. Yeah. And so it was definitely a bit stressful. But so tour prep for them, from my point of view, was a little bit different because when I came into rehearsals, like I said, they'd already had 2 days, in there, and they pretty much already had their ears dialed in. And it was basically just me dialing in the front of house and getting to know the songs and getting to know the people and how they run the show and all of that kind of stuff. And lucky for me, when I walked in there, they pretty much have 98% of everything that we need for a show. We basically just need drive lines to tie into a PA and a single mic stand. And I think at the time that might've been it. I think that was the only thing that we were borrowing from venues was a single mic stand. And then as the tour went on and into the next tour, we kept adding things and changing things and things broke and whatever. But we pretty much were entirely self-contained with stuff that they already owned. So that made things a lot easier too, because you could come in and everything was the same every day. All the mics were the same, all the consoles and everything were the same. So you knew what you were getting into every day. So like that was super nice. As far as all the other tour prep stuff, like I wasn't involved with any of that, like any of the merch stuff, any of the advancing, any of that kind of stuff. Cause literally I was so late, into it that I was just like, here we go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, gear wise, what did you end up running with?
So, gear wise, so there's the 3 members. Nick plays drums, Travis does vocals and plays guitar, and Mike does vocals and plays guitar. And Travis only plays guitar in a handful of songs. And then, so we have, all of the things for those, all of real drums, all the guitars are Kempers. So it's all direct, which makes stage volume really quiet. Mm-hmm. And then we have tracks, which, to be honest, the tracks aren't even much. We have some music tracks that are like some acoustic guitar and some keys and some synths and some extra like 808s and things like that. We have a couple of background vocals for like accents, but there's nothing real. Travis can actually sing very well. Mm-hmm. And then we have bass, and then there's clicking and all that stuff that come through because they're all on ears too. Mm-hmm. And then they have separate monitor control for all of their ears. And then I was running an X32 at front of house for everything.
They're running an X32 rack for the stage for like monitor control, like stuff.
Pretty much. Yeah. And then, and then I had an X32 compact up front. And by the end of the tour, or by the end of the second tour, I was pretty much maxed out on everything because I ended up adding some extra stuff and, just things for ease and to make it things sound a little bit better. And we added audience mics and we added talkback mics and
I feel like audience mics is something that you don't think about until you're like playing a lot and you're like, I wish I could hear without having to do this all the time.
Yeah. And it makes it hard when you don't have a full-time monitor engineer because like audience mics in the middle of a song can also be terrible. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the artist and the venue and sometimes the crowd and stuff like that too. Because you will get smaller venues and people will go up to the audience mics and be screaming into them like this.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, that's not helpful.
That's not for that.
It's not. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely helped. And they just have a little touch of that kind of stuff in there. But yeah, it was, it was a little bit of a learning experience for everybody to try to get back onto the, back into things again. And
I feel like the whole world was getting back.
Yeah. That side of things, we can get into that too. Touring during, still during COVID times was wild and was very different and was really hard in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear because I feel like I had a couple people photographer from Fit for a King. Like they came through and he was like, yeah, can't hang out with anybody. Sorry, wish I could. We went to a tour, or we went to a festival, and like the Ghostness I was playing, and like I was working with a different band, and Chris was like, I can come hang out with you guys outside, but I can't, like, we can't go hang out in the rooms or anything like that. Like it's really, really locked in.
Yeah. So for us, the first tour, basically, so it was 3 band members and 3 crew members, and we tested every single show day. We were only allowed, now with the exception of a couple people, me and the merch guy, but pretty much everybody else was allowed in the green room, the bus, or on stage when there were people in the venue, and that was it. Like before the venue doors opened, we were allowed anywhere, but other than that, like we were only allowed in those couple places, just because as soon as you get in rooms full of people, you don't know what's going to happen. And at this point, somebody getting COVID shuts a whole thing down, like a whole tour down. And like, that's all of our paychecks. And that's,
I didn't even think about that. Like out of all the people on that tour, you and the merch guy were the most likely to get COVID, and neither of you did, which is pretty cool. Or at least I know that you didn't, but I'm not sure.
Yes. Yeah, so we were extremely lucky. Now, granted, it was another thing. Masks were enforced very strictly on our crew. And for the most part, all of the other bands were very, very strict about it as well. And yeah, I mean, me and the merch guy were masked up, at least single mask, sometimes double mask, depending on where we were and what the venue's, policies were. Some of the venues, most of the venues masks were necessary. Like you needed to wear a mask to get into there and stay in there. A lot of them had vaccination policies as well, where you had to show proof of vaccination or a negative test within 48 hours or 72 hours or whatever. So like we did everything that we possibly could to try to prevent, us shutting a tour down. And yeah, we did really well with the exception of one show. We never had to stop a tour. We never had to stop anything because of COVID stuff. So that is super, super lucky. Sadly, the one show we did have to shut down was us and Jaden and MGK at Red Rocks. So that's kind of a huge bummer. Mm-hmm. But, other than that, we didn't have any COVID shutdowns, any sickness shutdowns or whatever. And just to dispel any rumors that may be floating around, if anybody is listening about that, we did have to cancel a day on the Grayscale tour, which is that tour at the end of the year. But that was because one of the Grayscale dudes got food poisoning. It actually was food poisoning. It wasn't COVID that we pretended was food poisoning. It was not good. But yeah, so I mean, we were super, super, super lucky in that. But also at the same time, we worked really hard to make sure that we were all being safe and taking the necessary precautions and all of that stuff. Like it's both. But
I do feel like the touring world is going to be super different going forward with like different like sickness mandates and things like that. Like they're going to be super hyper aware of like getting sick with the flu, getting sick with like stomach viruses, things like that. Even outside of COVID stuff, I feel like it's going to just look very different now.
Yeah, at least for a couple years. I mean, I think once this kind of dies back down, or whatever that looks like, I do think it'll go back to some semblance of normal. But for now, it's definitely going to look very, very different in that way for sure. And I mean, same thing. Like we were all on like tons of vitamins and immunity shots and like all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we were doing our absolute best in every way to keep from getting sick at all.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to look different for sure.
For sure. So you did two tours. You did the Mod Sun tour, and the other one was their headliner that with Grayscale, right? Or was it Grayscale?
So yeah. So the first tour was Mod Sun's headliner, and we were direct support, and then we had a bunch of one-offs in between. And then we went on the Grayscale tour, and that was Grayscale's headliner, and we were direct support again. Mm-hmm. And then we had a couple one-offs after that as well.
Okay.
Some of those one-offs were the ones with MGK, Machine Gun Kelly. And then we did a big festival in Florida, and we did a couple other different things like that. But yeah, those were the two. Those were the two tours.
Those were the two main ones with like sprinkles of other stuff in between.
Exactly.
So what was I saw, and you talked to me about this a little bit. You were talking about doing some mixing like in your hotel room of the songs or something like that. Like what was that for? Like, and is that just for mix practice, or is that for like new song stuff, or is that just for like what exactly? Or mixed practice? There's pictures on my Instagram and other places of me with the entire mixing console in my hotel room watching Futurama. And basically what I did is I brought the console up. So most of the shows, if I had time, I would set up my computer and I would multi-track out of my computer, out of the console into my computer, and record every show multi-tracked out. A lot of them I also recorded a 2-track directly off the console as well.
which is basically sums what's coming out of the main PA straight into a left right, and then records directly to a flash drive. But what I'm talking about is literally like real multi-tracking, like kicks on one track, snares on the next track, hats on the next track, like you're audio people, you know what I'm talking about, multi-tracking. And then so what I did is a piece of the way through that tour, I was like, you know what? I have a day and a half in this hotel room by myself. The mix is fine, but I feel like it could be better. And so I brought the whole console upstairs and plugged my computer in. And basically what you do is you set it up so that it's flipped. So instead of what's coming into the console recording out to your computer, it flips it so that what's from your computer is then coming in through your console. And it comes in, it's called virtual sound check for live sound people. And basically it takes your kick track and it puts it directly on, you have to route it this way, but it takes your kick track from your computer and routes it directly to the kick channel on the console. And then everything else just falls in line. And so all you can do is you can plug in real studio monitors, or what I did is I just used my in-ears and listened back, and you can mix all of that on the console in real time. So, because the multi-tracks to the computer is just gain staging. So, or it's just the gain. It doesn't pull anything else. It doesn't pull EQs. It doesn't pull compression. It doesn't do anything else. So it's just the gain hitting that. So, the head amp gain, whatever. So then when it comes back, it's just like they're playing right in front of you, except they're not. And so you can mix in real time. And so I basically just rebuilt like 70% of the file in my hotel room to make it, just because I think it could have been better. And then after we came back, it was. So whatever. But
I was going to say, do you feel like
it was cool.
There was a big jump? Do you feel like there was a big jump like between that before and after that?
I'm not going to say a big jump, but it was because I don't want it to sound like what it sounded like. I don't want it to come off as if it sounded bad before, but there was definitely a significant improvement. Yeah. And just because it's like you got, when you have 30 minutes to set up everything, sound check, and leave in a venue, you don't have time to sit there and fine tune like every little weird snare drum frequency and every weird little tom hit and stuff like that. And so when you sit back that way, you can dive more into that kind of stuff. And you can set up, I set up a lot more hotkeys and like things like that to help. Hotkeys is the wrong word, but you guys know what I mean by that. To help with
the little quick push buttons on the right side of the M32. Yeah. Or the X32.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so basically, like when I push this one button, it takes me directly here, or push this button, it automatically starts recording, or whatever. Just things to help me save time too, and get faster with everything. And it definitely helped. It definitely was a significant improvement. And honestly, had I had the time pre-tour, I would have sat down with those multi-tracks and done the same thing, before we left. But I just didn't have the time. None of us did, because of how it all kind of came together. But technology is a great tool when you actually use it.
So as far as reproducing all that, it's super, super simple with the guitars and stuff, right? Because you're running Kempers. But for the drums, are you running clips on each shell? So you have everything nearly identical? Mic clips?
What do you mean? Oh, yeah. So, yes. So everything, all of our stuff is exactly the same. All of our mics are exactly the same. Mic placement for the most part is exactly the same.
Whenever you're doing cymbals, right? What are you using to mic those? I was always curious because in the studio, we're always running, a lot of times we'll even use large diaphragm mics, so what are you doing to capture those live and to make sure there isn't a ton of other gross things coming into it?
Yeah, so I actually do something a little bit different than some people, but I like the way that it sounds. So who's going to tell me that it's wrong? But I have two overheads that are basically like pencil condensers, and then I have a ride mic that's a pencil condenser as far as cymbals go. And so what I do is to get nerdy for a second, is I actually I mic them from underneath the cymbals.
Yeah.
All the cymbals. So then what you have to do, what comes into play is like all of the phase and polarity stuff, which gets super kind of weird. But actually, okay, so what I do is kick out, snare bottom, and the 3 cymbals are in phase, and you flip the phase of everything else, which is different from the way most people do
interesting
drums. Because if you think about it from like an actual physical perspective, if you look at the waveform, like on a kick drum, it's pushing the diaphragm out, right? So if you leave that the same way, hold on, I'm gonna try to explain this so that it kind of makes sense. So it's pushing air out to hit the diaphragm. The same with the snare bottom. It's pushing the air into the snare bottom, but it's not actually pushing the same way to the snare top. So if you flip the phase, then it's pushing it all in the same direction. Same with the underheads, because it's pushing like down. I don't know. I'm doing a very bad job of explaining all of this.
I see what you're saying. It's all about that directional air movement, and you're just matching the directional air movement with
exactly.
So basically, between filtering and then phase cancellation, you're able to get a pretty solid separation between the two.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. And it's just different because most people will keep, like for snare especially, most people will put the top snare in phase and flip the phase of the bottom one to get them to match, which works. But with the way that everything else is working together as a single instrument, because yes, drums are separate shells and separate cymbals and stuff, but also it's in the same way, it's one instrument. So you have to get all of those to work together, not just individual shells and individual cymbals.
Yeah, that's actually like really, really interesting. I'm wondering how something like an Earthwork set would work for live music, because they're so good at being directional. And then with you guys having no live monitors or amps on stage, like I feel like that would be pretty interesting to see how something like that would work out.
And that's something else I was thinking of also, is because you do flip everything basically the reverse of what people normally do, I would think it actually would cancel out more of the stage noise that way too, potentially.
Sometimes, but not really, because to be honest, the only stage noise is drums and vocals, and you're not going to get vocals over top of drums.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you're not going to get vocals and drum mics. You're going to get drum mics and drums and vocal mics.
Yeah,
but you're not going to get the opposite. And so, I mean, there's definitely a science to all of this stuff. I mean, it's the same with everything else. It's also like how you position everything, makes a difference in the grand scheme too. So like my hi-hat, if the snare drum's here and the hi-hat, bottom of the hi-hat cymbals sit like this, my hi-hat mic actually sits like this. So the snare drum's over here, and it actually cancels out a lot of the snare drum bleed that you usually get in a hi-hat. I mean, you're not going to get all of it because the snare drum's the loudest thing on the stage.
Yeah.
But it cancels out more than you would if you were placing the mic like people normally do over top facing the snare drum, Yeah. And so it's all about the little strategic moves in that way. It's the same with how I do my floor tom. My floor tom, the cancellation piece of the back of that mic actually sits directly where the china is, because again, chinas are freaking loud cymbals.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to cancel out everything, but it cancels out a lot so that you don't have to fight as much with that when you're when you're trying to get it to mesh all as one instrument. That's
really cool. That's like, Go ahead.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's it's fun to, like, when you have the time to actually sit down and like practice the difference of this. And like when we have longer sound checks and stuff, I've actually sat down and changed the phase to the way everybody else normally does it. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't sound as good. Like it doesn't sound like it's pushing at you, because you don't feel the drums the same.
Well, also with that much movement and stuff like that, I wonder like how in phase like these things actually are when you're in a super loud environment, and then you're also dealing with like imperfect sound stages and stuff like that. Like I feel like you deal with a lot of phase issues live, so like things like that really don't,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've met so many live engineers who will actually measure out like the distance from the overheads to the snare drum to make sure they're all in phase, which like in a studio makes sense, but like live, it's not the same. It's not the same at all. Like,
it's not the
same. Yes, there's pieces of it that
keep going.
Yes, there's pieces of it that like transfer over and whatever, but it's not at all the same. Because again, you're not getting the isolation on a real stage that you're going to get in a studio.
Yeah. Even with like even without having floor monitors and things like that.
Exactly.
I mean, natural room ambience and stuff.
So I'm actually the capsule that I use for Travis is a really good one. And so on the smaller stages and stuff, it picks up more of the cymbals than the overheads do. Like most of the time, I don't even have much of the overheads in the PA because the room is smaller and it's just reverberating everywhere, and it's all coming through Travis's mic. And he's super. There's so much compression happening on his vocal that like everything just pops through too. So, that's also things that you have to fight with that you don't have to deal with in a studio.
I'm actually texting Lee right now because I felt like I heard somebody. I know it wasn't you who told me about miking cymbals underneath. So I was texting him to see if he was talking about that. He said, yeah. Like for some of the live stuff that he's had to do, he'll also mic the cymbals underneath. And I mentioned about how you flip the phase, and he was like, yeah, no, that's a great way to do it live.
That makes
so I wonder
a lot
if he
of
does
sense.
the same thing. Lee's like such a drum wizard. Like I always like to ask him about these things,
You should. Hey, also speaking of which, did you hear the just a random thing? Did you watch that Teddy Swims video? I think Josh posted it, or Josh Reed posted it, or something like that. It was
Did I watch it?
Yeah, no. Did you watch it? It was a video of them doing a song that they had just released live. It sounded like a studio version. Yeah. Like how clean everything was. Yeah, I thought crazy. It was a studio version.
Oh yeah.
But it was on like a soundstage.
Yeah,
you should watch it. I'll send it to you. It's crazy.
Lee's actually a wizard, man.
Yeah,
actually a wizard. Honestly, you guys could probably talk forever about.
Oh yeah,
live stuff.
You two need to connect because like he does a lot of live sound mixing, and like as far as like mixing for records and stuff. And since you do a lot of live sound like front of house work, there's a lot of that overlaps there in a lot of.
Well, I mean, also like at Kegsmith, he was doing the broadcast mix.
Yeah.
It feels like there's something in my ear.
So
sorry.
I mean, I guess less than normal because of COVID situations. Was there anything on either one of those tours that happens that was like either a highlight for you or something really cool or something kind of funny or crazy or anything like that?
Yeah. Any highlights?
I know what Josh wants me to say, and I'll say it later. I mean, honestly, there were a ton. See, the first part about all of this is, like I said at the beginning, like you never know what you're getting into when you work with a new band, a new artist at all. Like you could be walking into the worst people on the planet, and that's simply not even close to what happened. These guys actually turned out to be some of the best people I've ever met, period, let alone in the music industry. They're ridiculously nice. There's no egos. There's none of that garbage. They're all ridiculously talented. It's annoying. And even when things go wrong, because like, it's live music, things are going to go wrong. Even when things go wrong, it's like, okay, that sucks. Let's never do it again. How do we make sure we never do it again? And like, that's how that's as heated as the conversations ever get. So like, that's freaking dope. And actually I was texting one of them earlier today about other stuff. Like they're just solid people, and that's great. So we had a lot of like stupid adventures and like would go out and just get, be dumb often. But the one that Josh wants me to talk about is we were in Biloxi, Mississippi, and on a day off. And if you know anything about Biloxi, Mississippi, you know that there's basically nothing there. So we went to this mall, and me and Travis were walking through like one of the sections of the mall, and we walked past a Claire's, and he looked at me and he goes, "I'll give you $100 right now to pierce your belly button." And I said, "Okay, look, dude, I need to be honest with you. I'll do it, but not at Claire's. Like, that's not the move." And he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." Oh, and a previous conversation. So this was on the second tour. This was on the Grayscale tour. On the first tour, we were talking about somebody getting a girlfriend's tattoo, and Nick said something like, "That's crazy. I can't believe it." And I was like, "Whatever, I'll go out and get one right now. I don't care about my body." And he laughed and he's like, "Whatever." So we're in Biloxi, Mississippi, and Travis is like, "No, seriously, I'll give you $100 to do it right now." And I said, "Look, dude, you don't have to keep convincing me. I'll do stupid stuff on my own, just not at Claire's." Like, Claire's is not the move.
We got standards
or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So we moved on, and we went shopping and got these weird, those like airbrush stations in like rundown malls. Like, a guy will literally like airbrush sunsets and stuff. So Travis got like girlfriend's like a sunset t-shirt with the girlfriend's logo and stuff on it, and a hat, and it was weird. There's also a bar inside the mall. It was a very weird place.
Yo, that sounds lit. Let's go to the mall.
But it was weird. Yeah. So anyway, so then we are in Pomona, California, and we set up everything, and we were like halfway through the Grayscale tour. And we walked outside, and it was me and Travis and a couple other people, and one of our stage manager tech was like, "I'm hungry. Like, where's there to eat around here?" And one of the girls goes, "Yeah, there's a tattoo shop, a bookstore, and a coffee shop, but there's not really food." And he's like, "Well, a tattoo shop, maybe we'll just go get tattoos right now." And I was like, "You don't have to tell me. I'll do it. Whatever. I don't care. I told you I don't care about my body." And Travis looked at me and he goes, "No, seriously, you won't get a girlfriend's tattoo right now." And I was like, "I just said that I would. I will." And he was like, "What? You're going to get the whole girlfriend's logo tramp stamp on yourself?" And I was like, "A tramp stamp though? I don't know if I could do that." He's like, "Fine, then get the girlfriend's logo right around your nipple." And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever. I'll do it. I don't care." He's like, "No, seriously, I'll pay for you. I'll do it right now." And I was like, "I already said I would." And then the tech was like, "I'll chip in $100." And then somebody else was like, "I'll chip in another $100." And Travis is like, "Whatever, I'll match it. I'll give you $100 too. And I'll pay for everything." And I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And then Travis was like, "Wait a minute, do you remember Mississippi?" And I went, "Yeah." He's like, "You won't do it. You won't get them both done right now." And I was like, "I will. I will." And so Travis's friend walked to the tattoo shop and was like, "Hey, do you guys have time to do a tattoo and a piercing right now?" And the girl was like, "We don't have time for the piercing, but we can do the tattoo. Just give us, a couple minutes to draw it up and whatever." And so we walked in, and literally as soon as we walked in, the girl who does all the piercings went, "Wait a minute, you're the person who wanted to get the piercing?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "We have time now."
Let's go. This is the content we came for.
Yeah. So she's like, "Let's go. You sure you want to do this?" I was like, "Yep." And so everybody around me is dying laughing. And I was like, "Whatever." So we walked to the back, and I laid down on the table, and the piercing person could not stop laughing. Like, was to the point where she was crying laughing so much. She's like, "You sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "I don't care." Travis was more nervous than I was, or at least seemed like he was more nervous than I was to get this done. And so, yeah, so we walked back, and she's like, "You ready?" I was like, "Yep." And they gave me the nice, it's still there.
Oh, nice belly button.
And, when are you going to take it out, man? Come on.
And And then we walked out and everybody was laughing. And the tattoo artist was like, "You ready?" And I was like, "Yep." And then they, so then I got the nice little Girlfriends logo right there too.
Nice.
And
hey, it's classy though.
I know. And I can say that it's like, it's in reference because they have a song called Tattoo. And the chorus of the tattoo is, I got a new tattoo because it reminds me of you and all this stuff. And there's a part in one of the pre-choruses that says like, I try my hardest to keep my promise. And so I put you right where my heart is. I got a new tattoo because it reminds me of you. And I was like, that's why I got it right here because it's right where my heart. It reminds me of you. Travis like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I love you.
I just want it to be known that last night I was playing Hardcore Search and Destroy. And for those of you who are Call of Duty fans, you understand the concept of Hardcore Search and Destroy's game chat, where in between rounds, there is just a lot of trash talk and screaming and shouting. And I told a guy who kept heckling, all right? I told him, I was like, you sound like you have a belly button piercing. And the entire game just started screaming with laughter. So,
yeah, well,
and that's only because I keep thinking about your belly button piercing. That's the only reason why that came to mind. So,
okay. So to keep going with this, because I can tell you guys are enjoying this. So, so the bet was that I would have to keep it until the end of the tour, and I still have it. So I won that bet.
Easy as like $500 you've ever made.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
But it definitely got infected. Well, actually, I almost lost because so it got infected and I almost took it out because it got infected, but I cleaned it and kept up with it and fixed it. And then we were in so we had Harrisburg and then fly date to Tampa, and Tampa was the last day on the tour. In Harrisburg, I woke up that morning and the screwball at the top of it was missing. And so it started to come out. And I was like, I'm going to lose this bet on the last day. There's no way. And so I put a piece of gaff tape over it, which was stupid, but whatever. And I walked to the nearest tattoo shop, which was not open. So I ended up walking like 9 miles this day to another tattoo shop to get another one to go in. By the time, and somewhere in the walking, it had fallen out. So it was just completely empty. And so I got to the second tattoo shop and bought a new belly button ring and got back to the bus. And I had to almost re-pierce it entirely because it had closed up so fast. And literally Travis was sitting on the side of the bus going, and like had to leave because it was so... Yeah, like I could feel it pop twice because it had closed on both sides of the hole. It was gross. So I don't know if we want to leave this story in or not.
We will.
I'll tell it. I'll tell it. No, this next part.
Oh, okay.
So we went to this really nice steak dinner in Tampa after the whole thing was done. And
this is the story
Josh
I
is
came
nodding
for.
so hard right now.
We're gonna have to cut this one out, boys.
Yeah, we
keep on going.
This isn't very family friendly.
We probably should, but I'll tell you anyway because you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
But so we went to this really nice this really high-end steakhouse, and we got a nice bottle of wine, and we like celebrated the tour, and it was great. So at the end of it, Travis goes, "You guys want to go to a strip club? We're going to a strip club." And a couple of the guys are like, "I don't know if I want to go to a strip club right now."
In Tampa?
And Travis is like, "Yeah." And Travis is like, "Nope, we're going."
Bro,
and
Tampa's
you guys
wild. You could get Michelin star chefs to cook you food at strip clubs. My coworkers were telling me all about it when I lived down there. I was like, what do you people do? And they're like, oh, well, it's just kind of a given that when you're in your 20s, you just club. And then you get serious when you're in your 30s. I was like, so that's why y'all work at car dealerships now.
Yeah. So Travis is like, no, this is a bonding experience. Everyone has to go. And like, he was very serious. He's like, we have to go. Everyone's going. So fine. So we go to the strip club, and even at this, I'm not going to tell that part, but okay, I will. They don't actually sell. They're not allowed to sell alcohol in this strip club for whatever reason. They're just not allowed. And our tour manager called ahead and played the like, yeah, this is Travis Mills. He's on like this MTV show and like, you should let us come. And they're like, we got you. So they had a private security guard for us the whole time. They gave us a private section and they brought us alcohol. But what you had to do is you had to go out front, get it out of a plastic garbage bag, pour it into a cup and walk in with it because you weren't allowed to get served in the place. It was a whole thing.
That sounds sketchy.
So
It's very sketchy.
yeah, it was
so sketchy.
you know, but they wanted to make us happy and they knew we were going to spend a lot of money. So
True.
Which they did. But yeah, so we're sitting around there talking and I'm not the strip club type. Like I'm just not, it's not that event. Like it's not that cool for me. But so I'm standing there and I had a couple drinks and I looked at the stripper and I was like, hey, so you, how you feel about guys with piercings? And she's like, oh, that's so hot. And I was like, yeah. How do you feel about guys with belly button piercings? Literally, every person in the section stops and goes, what? And so then, of course, everybody was like, we need to see it. And I was like, okay. So I pulled my shirt up and they're like, oh my God, that's so hot. And I was like, is it though?
Sure.
Is it though? And so I've decided that my new favorite pickup line to use on girls now is, hey, how you feel about guys with piercings?
Oh, that's so good, dude. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Josh had to leave. He was dying so hard.
Yeah.
He couldn't handle it. Oh, that's so good.
Hey everyone, I wanted to tell you about a great company called That Pitch. Have you ever had some leftover song ideas you just didn't know what to do with? Or maybe you needed to flex that writing muscle, but you still need to get paid? Enter That Pitch, a sync licensing company that pitches your productions directly to their exclusive list of clients. That Pitch has already paid out over $120,000 to its members since October of 2020. They provide production advice, business training, and other resources to make your songs better. Go to thatpitch.com to sign up and use the code HANGOUT for 20% off your monthly or yearly subscription.
Away from tour, or it might be tour, what's 2022 looking like for you, Nick?
It's gonna be huge, honestly. It's gonna be huge. I'm not going to be the one to spill any beans, but
no, obviously.
Girlfriends has a lot planned. Like a lot planned.
We looking like, and it's going to potentially barely being home for the whole year, kind of a lot planned.
Yeah.
Woo!
For a second, it was like I'm gone for 9 months this year. Yeah. For a minute, it was going to be like that kind of intense.
Jeez.
It looks like that's not going to happen anymore, but that's okay. It's still going to be crazy, like, crazy.
3 months off, a month off, 3 months on, a month off, 3 months on, a month off kind of potential.
Probably.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's going to be wild. Some of the names that we've been throwing around for these tours are incredible, huge. Yeah. Like people I never thought I'd get to see.
It's wild. It's wild. Like looking back at like, even just a year ago at this point, right? Thinking to yourself, thinking about yourself a year ago and then going, look at the potential like end of 2022, like what that's going to look like versus the beginning of 2020. Like Nick, right? That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it all the time, honestly, like, especially in like, I think back to that country festival. Like right before I got the phone call to go work with Girlfriends. And I was like, I don't know what the rest of my year is going to be boring. And I literally remember having that thought, like the rest of my year is going to be terrible. I'm going to be doing shop work. It's going to be awful. I was like, I need to get back on the road again. And then at the end of that, I got the phone call that, I mean, like not to be dramatic, but I really think that phone call changed my whole life.
Oh no, for serious. It did. Because I mean, this is the situation that a live engineer wants, right?
Yeah.
You are the guy until you don't want to be the guy anymore.
Yeah, until I screw up badly enough, or until I don't want to do it anymore.
Exactly.
And at this point, like, nobody plans on screwing up badly enough, and they like me as a person and as an engineer. So like,
and they're gonna be willing to cut you breaks within reason because they're nice people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it is the situation we all want to work, we all want to fall into, and not that I have any plans of leaving them, but if I do have time off or whatever, from tours with them, because they all have real lives and they all have other gigs. I mean, Travis has, I don't know how much of this is public knowledge, but he has at least one MTV show. He has his Apple podcast. Nick runs like 6 companies or something stupid. I don't know. Like, they all have, other lives. So if they decide to take time off, I've already had offers for multiple other tours with multiple other artists.
And that's what I was going
to,
that's something else that I was thinking about too. Cause, so you met Bowman. Bowman is just now getting into the live, like, touring scene and all that kind of stuff. And something that Chris Davis and also Bowman have both been saying is there's such a need for live guys right now.
Yeah.
Like, if you were going to get into the live touring industry, now's kind of the best time to do it, because there's such a need.
Mm-hmm.
You can get on tours that you have no business being on just because you're available.
I mean, that's kind of true. And granted, I don't like suggesting those kind of things because it can get dangerous. Like, if you really actually bite off more than you can chew, it can be a very bad time.
For sure.
But
I mean,
but at the same time,
if you are capable.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's very much a need right now for live sound engineers. Even if you get in with a production company and work for a year to learn and hone your skills and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, that's what Chris did. He worked at the Masquerade for a year, and then he's on a tour right now.
Yep. Yeah. And he's gonna kill himself on that tour.
Oh yeah, he's gonna kill himself on the tour. They've already had dates dropped from that, so it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. I mean, he's gonna be completely fine on that tour.
He'll be fine.
It's just there's just very few breaks and very long runs in between, long stretches with no time off.
Josh, 29 days straight, no days off. That is
who booked that?
Insane.
Who booked that? Fight them.
I think now it's down.
Yeah, it's down now, but that's what it was at first.
Yeah, I think now it's down to still 20 days in a row. That's crazy. 20 days in a row for a tour.
That's a bit much.
That's crazy talk.
Yeah, a little bit.
But
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a need though. People are going out. There's way more shows. There's more bands trying to do stuff. I mean,
yeah,
like, he got hit up for an Atreyu gig. He got hit up for monitors for Under Oath because they might need a guy and they like having backups. Mm-hmm. Like, the stuff is out there, and if you're good and you can prove yourself capable, like, the jobs in the live industry are very much there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, you're gonna, just from doing this level of things with girlfriends, you're gonna get a ton of other really great opportunities alongside working with them.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's having the experience and also being a cool person, and you can go anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully in 2022 you can, like, get some songs out and work on some of your own personal stuff. And
yeah, well, I mean, that's definitely in the works too. I mean, I don't know when this episode is supposed to come out, but hopefully by the time it does, I might actually have already released some stuff. We'll see.
Hopefully.
But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of stuff in the works that hopefully I can actually get out. I mean, I've been sitting I've had a new Lions record halfway written since 2017. And like, I've just been sitting on it because I'm perfecting it and I'm tweaking it, and I've, get that demo-itis thing. And now I'm just like, screw this. I just have to get it out. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I've really like kind of, because so at the end of every year, I sit down and I look at all of the goals that I had for that year, and I think about what the next year is going to look like. And I think one of the common things is there's so many pieces of goals that I had that didn't take that much, like time and effort and money and whatever to actually do, but I actually have to sit down and just do them. And, not necessarily like life-changing things, but like things that I've been wanting to do for a while, even like little half-day trips in California to places I haven't been yet. Like I just have to sit down and do it, and, so I've already had like a lot of, stuff happening in my brain where I'm just like, I just have to sit down and do this stuff and just make it happen. And then it's done.
This will go out into February, by the way.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Into February.
So yeah, I mean, so my plan right now is to have at least the first song of the new pop project come out the first week of February, or at least to get announced the first week of February. We'll see how it all pans out. I mean, there's a lot of variables in all of that.
Obviously, but if there's
regardless, I want the first single to come out in February. At
if
least.
There are links,
I was hoping.
If there are links, they will be in the description if they exist. If there's not, then follow Nick for more keeping up with his pop project.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I for your because you brought this up before, I've already started all of the. Because there's new social media for everything. I've already started all of the new TikTok things that are going to be associated with the pop project and like all that kind of stuff. So
started stockpiling them in the drafts.
Oh yeah. I don't even want to look at how many drafts I have on my other account right now. It's stupid. It's so stupid.
I only have like 3. Easily, I don't post enough.
Oh no, it's close to like 200 drafts right now that I have. It's so many. Some of them just because they're bad, and I was like, I'll save it and do this later. And some of them just because they're, I'm saving them to all put out at a specific time. But
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
sick, dude. Well,
it's a little dumb.
Nick, thanks for coming on and hanging out with us again, man. Had a good conversation about your. Yeah. So I know Josh always loves seeing your beautiful face.
Always.
Yeah.
Listeners, thanks for listening. Go follow Nick at Nick Dewar. On the socials. I believe it's at Nick Dewar Music, right?
It's at Nick Dewar for everything except TikTok. TikTok is Nick Dewar Audio.
Nick Dewar Audio, that's what it was. I was like, I know one of them's different, but I can't remember which one.
Yeah, TikTok.
All of the socials and everything are also in the description if you want to follow him. Nick, once again, thanks for coming in and hanging out.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, for sure. It's great to be here as always.
And we will see you guys next week.
Peace.